Imagine waking up completely alone. No voices, no footsteps, no campfire, no family, no tribe. Just silence. At first, that might sound peaceful, a chance to think, to breathe, to enjoy complete freedom. But now, imagine something else. You're not living today. There are no cities, no houses, no police, no supermarkets, no hospitals, no phones. You're standing somewhere in Africa, nearly 100,000 years ago. The sun is beginning to set. Hyenas are already calling in the distance. Lions hunt after dark. Leopards move almost without making a sound. You are alone. And suddenly, that silence feels completely different. Today, millions of people fear being alone. Some dislike eating by themselves. Others struggle to sleep in an empty house. Many feel anxious after losing close relationships. Even brief social isolation can feel deeply uncomfortable. Why? Is loneliness simply an emotion, or is it something much older? The answer reaches far beyond modern psychology. It stretches back through thousands of generations, back to a time when being alone wasn't merely unpleasant, it was often deadly. To understand why humans fear loneliness, we first need to understand one remarkable fact about our species. Compared to most animals, humans are surprisingly weak. A single human cannot outrun a horse, cannot overpower a bear, cannot fight a wolf, cannot survive freezing winters without tools. Even our babies arrive unusually helpless. A newborn deer can stand within hours. A human baby may need years before becoming independent. By almost every physical measure, early humans should never have become Earth's dominant species. Yet somehow, they did. Not because they became stronger, but because they became better at staying together. Imagine a small group of prehistoric humans moving across an open grassland, perhaps 20 people. Children walking beside their mothers, experienced hunters scanning the horizon, older members remembering where water could be found. Nobody survives entirely alone. Every person depends on everyone else. One gathers berries, another repairs tools, someone else watches for predators. One remembers which plants are poisonous, another knows where animals migrate every season. Knowledge itself becomes shared. No individual carries everything. The tribe carries it together. This cooperation transformed humanity. While many predators relied on claws, humans relied on each other. Our ancestors became specialists in cooperation long before they became specialists in technology. And evolution noticed. Generation after generation, individuals who remained close to their groups survived more often. Those who wandered away often disappeared. Imagine becoming separated from your tribe during a hunt. Perhaps thick fog rolls across the valley. Perhaps you follow wounded prey too far. When the sun sets, you realize something terrifying. Everyone else is gone. Today, getting lost usually means opening a map. Back then, there was no map, no flashlight, no rescue helicopter, no emergency number. Only darkness, and countless dangers waiting inside it. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer societies have found that living in groups dramatically increases survival. More eyes detect danger. More hands gather food. More people protect children. A single person misses things. 20 people notice almost everything. Your ancestors didn't merely prefer company, they depended on it. Every successful generation inherited brains shaped by this reality. Those brains still exist today, inside us, even though the world around us has changed completely. This helps explain something fascinating. Loneliness actually activates many of the same brain regions associated with physical pain. That isn't an accident. Pain exists for a reason. Touch a hot surface. Pain tells you to pull away. Break a bone, pain tells you to protect it. Become socially isolated. Your brain creates emotional pain for the same reason, to push you back towards safety. In other words, Loneliness isn't a flaw, it's an alarm system, an alarm that once saved countless lives. Imagine if isolation felt pleasant to prehistoric humans. Individuals might wander farther from camp, spend nights alone, become easier targets for predators, miss important information, lose opportunities to find mates. Eventually, those genes would become less common. Instead, natural selection rewarded brains that disliked prolonged isolation. The stronger the discomfort, the faster someone returned to the group, the greater their chances of surviving. Over thousands of generations, that tiny advantage accumulated until loneliness became one of humanity's strongest emotional experiences. But predators weren't the only danger. Humans also depended on each other emotionally. Imagine losing a close family member in a prehistoric tribe. The grief wouldn't simply come from love. It would also come from uncertainty. Who helps gather food now? Who protects the children? Who remembers the safest migration routes? Every relationship carried practical value. Losing someone meant losing part of your tribe's survival system. Perhaps this is why human attachment became so powerful. We don't simply enjoy relationships. Our brains build around them. Even today, parents instinctively respond when babies cry. Babies instinctively reach toward familiar faces. Friends comfort one another after difficult experiences. Romantic partners often become emotional safe places. These behaviors didn't appear by accident. They were shaped over enormous stretches of evolutionary time. Interestingly, humans aren't the only species that fear isolation. Wolves hunt in packs. Elephants remain close to family herds. Chimpanzees form lifelong social bonds. Many primates experience measurable stress when separated from their groups. But humans seem to take social connection even further. Our survival became so dependent on cooperation that our brains eventually treated social belonging almost like food, or water, or shelter, something essential, not optional. And perhaps nowhere is this more visible than around the campfire. For hundreds of thousands of years, as darkness covered the landscape, small groups gathered around fire. They cooked together, shared food, told stories, laughed, warned one another about danger, passed knowledge from one generation to the next. The fire did more than produce warmth. It created belonging. It told every person sitting beside it, "You are not alone." Now imagine the fire goes out. One by one, the voices disappear. Everyone falls asleep, except you. You stare into the darkness beyond the camp. Somewhere out there, something is moving. You can't see it, but your brain doesn't need proof, only possibility. For ancient humans, the unknown was often dangerous. A rustling bush could be nothing, or it could be a leopard. A distant sound might be the wind, or an enemy tribe. The cost of ignoring danger was enormous. The cost of imagining danger that wasn't there was much smaller. So evolution built brains that leaned toward caution, especially when alone. This is called the negativity bias. Our brains naturally pay more attention to possible threats than possible rewards. Not because we're pessimistic, but because our ancestors who underestimated danger often didn't become ancestors. Imagine hearing footsteps outside your cave. One person assumes it's nothing. Another immediately wakes everyone. If it really is a predator, only one of them survives. Generation after generation, the cautious brain wins. And loneliness amplifies that caution. Even today, people who feel isolated become more alert to negative social signals. A neutral facial expression may seem unfriendly. A delayed text message may feel like rejection. A stranger's silence may appear intentional. The world itself hasn't changed. The brain has. It's preparing for exclusion. Because for most of human history, exclusion could become a death sentence. Ancient tribes weren't enormous civilizations. Many consisted of only a few dozen individuals. Every relationship mattered. Every disagreement carried consequences. Being accepted wasn't merely comforting, it determined whether you ate tomorrow. Imagine accidentally breaking an important hunting spear, or failing during a dangerous hunt, or repeatedly refusing to share food. Eventually, others might stop trusting you. That loss of trust could slowly push someone toward the edge of the group. And living on the edge of the group often became living outside the group. Our ancestors learned something incredibly important. Reputation keeps you alive. Long before written laws, long before governments, long before money, there was reputation. People remembered who shared, who lied, who protected children, who abandoned others, who could be trusted. Your social standing wasn't just about popularity, it was survival. Perhaps this explains another fascinating human behavior: embarrassment. Think about it. Why do we blush? Why do we cringe after making mistakes? Why do we replay awkward conversations years later? These emotions seem irrational today, but imagine making a serious social mistake in a prehistoric tribe. If embarrassment motivates you to repair the relationship, apologize, cooperate, become accepted again, it increases your chances of remaining within the group. Even shame may have deep evolutionary roots. Our emotions aren't random. Many exist to protect social bonds, because social bonds once protected us. Now imagine something else: a child wandering too far from camp. For just a moment, they can't see their parents. Panic appears almost instantly. The crying begins. This reaction exists in nearly every human culture. Why? Because children who immediately searched for caregivers survived more often than children who quietly wandered away. Attachment begins astonishingly early. Within months of birth, babies already prefer familiar faces, familiar voices, familiar smells. They seek connection before they understand language. The brain is already preparing them to remain close to others. Adults never completely lose this system. We simply attach ourselves to different people: parents, friends, partners, communities, even entire nations. Some scientists believe humans possess one of the strongest social dependency systems of any mammal. And there is another reason: knowledge. Imagine discovering a new water source, finding edible plants, learning how to shape sharper stone tools. What happens if that knowledge dies with you? The tribe loses it. But if you teach others, everyone becomes stronger. Human civilization didn't emerge because individuals became smarter. It emerged because knowledge became shared. One generation taught the next. Who taught them? Not books, people. Everything depended on staying connected long enough to learn. Fire, language, hunting strategies, medicine, tool-making, navigation, childcare, stories, songs, beliefs. Almost everything that made humans successful traveled from one brain into another. Isolation interrupted that process. Connection preserved it. In many ways, our species evolved less like separate individuals and more like one enormous network of minds. Even today, no single person knows how to build an entire modern civilization. One engineer designs bridges, another creates computer chips, someone else grows food, someone develops medicine. We remain specialists, just like prehistoric tribes. The scale changed, the principle didn't. Our survival still depends on countless strangers. That dependence also shaped another remarkable ability: empathy. Imagine watching another hunter injure their leg. You could ignore them, continue walking, save your own energy. Or you could help. Helping costs time. It requires effort. Sometimes it even involves risk. So why would evolution favor compassion? Because in highly cooperative groups, today's helper often becomes tomorrow's survivor. The person you rescue today may rescue your child years later. Reciprocity became one of humanity's greatest strengths. Helping others wasn't simply kindness, it was investment. Communities built on mutual support outcompeted communities built on selfishness. Over thousands of generations, brains that understood other people's emotions became increasingly valuable. Eventually, humans became astonishingly good at reading faces, tiny movements around the eyes, subtle changes in voice, small shifts in posture. Your brain constantly predicts what other people are thinking, often without conscious effort. This ability transformed cooperation, but it also created something else: fear of rejection. If your brain spends thousands of hours monitoring social acceptance, it becomes highly sensitive to signs of exclusion, sometimes too sensitive. Modern psychologists often describe humans as having a social brain. Our nervous system evolved expecting regular interaction, conversation, touch, shared meals, laughter, comfort. These experiences aren't luxuries. For much of our evolutionary history, they were part of staying alive. Perhaps that's why prolonged isolation affects us so deeply. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness is associated with increased stress hormones, poorer sleep, weaker immune function, and a greater risk of anxiety and depression. It's as though the brain believes something is seriously wrong. From an evolutionary perspective, it probably is. Not because you're actually surrounded by predators, but because your brain still operates using software written during the Stone Age. Software that assumes being alone means being vulnerable. And that ancient software still runs inside every modern human. Yet something remarkable happened. Human civilization changed far faster than evolution ever could. 10,000 years ago, most humans still lived in small communities. Everyone knew everyone. Children grew up surrounded by relatives. Meals were shared. Work was shared. Stories were shared. You rarely spent an entire day without speaking to another person. Your brain evolved expecting exactly that. But then, villages became cities. Cities became nations. Nations became a connected world. Today, a person can live alone in a crowded apartment building, walk past hundreds of strangers, order food without speaking, work from home, watch entertainment alone, and spend an entire weekend without meaningful human contact. From the outside, nothing seems dangerous, but your ancient brain doesn't measure danger the same way. It doesn't count apartment walls, or security cameras, or grocery stores. It asks a much older question: where is the tribe? For hundreds of thousands of years, being surrounded by people usually meant safety. Being separated usually meant uncertainty. Those instincts didn't disappear when civilization appeared. They simply adapted. This is why loneliness often feels physical: a heavy chest, a restless mind, difficulty sleeping, constant worrying. Your body begins preparing for threats that never arrive. Because somewhere deep inside your nervous system, isolation still means something is wrong. Interestingly, humans don't only fear being physically alone. We fear being socially alone. Imagine standing in a crowded room. Hundreds of people surround you. Music is playing. Conversations fill the air. Yet no one notices you. No one speaks to you. No one remembers your name. Many people describe this as one of the loneliest experiences imaginable. Because our brains aren't simply searching for bodies nearby, they're searching for belonging. Belonging has always been the real resource. Think back to those prehistoric campfires. It wasn't enough to sit near the flames. You needed a place within the circle. You needed people who would protect you, people who would share food, people who would notice if you disappeared. That feeling of truly belonging somewhere may be one of humanity's oldest emotional needs. And perhaps that explains why rejection hurts so much. Modern brain scans have revealed something astonishing. The brain areas activated during social rejection overlap with areas involved in physical pain. Not perfectly, but significantly. In other words, your brain treats exclusion as something worth suffering over. That makes perfect evolutionary sense. If rejection once increased your chances of dying, pain became an effective warning signal. The brain wasn't trying to make you miserable. It was trying to bring you back. Back to the group. Back to safety. Back to survival. Even social media reveals this ancient wiring. Think about it. Why does a single ignored message sometimes bother us? Why do people check notifications repeatedly? Why can one negative comment outweigh 100 positive ones? Because your brain isn't counting likes. It's scanning for acceptance. It evolved long before smartphones, but it uses the same ancient machinery to interpret modern situations. Sometimes that machinery misfires. Thousands of strangers online cannot replace a trusted companion sitting beside a fire. Our brains evolved for small circles, not endless audiences. Anthropologists believe that for most of human history, people lived in groups rarely larger than about 100 to 150 individuals. Within those groups, everyone mattered. Everyone had a role. Everyone was known. Today, we may recognize thousands of names, yet struggle to find someone to call during difficult moments. Technology connected the world, but it didn't rewrite human evolution. Our emotional operating system remained largely the same. And perhaps nowhere is this more obvious than during moments of crisis. When people face natural disasters, wars, accidents, or illness, one of the first instincts is often to find someone else. Family, friends, neighbors, even complete strangers. People gather together, not because they have carefully analyzed the situation, but because millions of years of evolution quietly whisper, stay with the group. History offers countless examples. During ice ages, humans survived brutal winters by sharing warmth. During famines, food was divided among families. During dangerous migrations, groups protected one another across unfamiliar landscapes. Again and again, cooperation defeated isolation. Perhaps that's why some of humanity's greatest achievements were never individual accomplishments. Language wasn't created by one person. Neither was agriculture, or music, or writing, or science. Every breakthrough built upon generations of shared knowledge. Every discovery depended on someone teaching someone else. Civilization itself is a monument to cooperation. But there's another side to this story. Humans also need moments of solitude. That may sound contradictory. If we're built for connection, why do many people enjoy being alone? The answer lies in the difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is usually a choice. Loneliness usually isn't. Imagine walking alone through a peaceful forest. You know your family is waiting at home. Your friends are only a phone call away. Being alone feels relaxing, safe, restorative. Now imagine walking through that same forest, believing no one is looking for you. No one knows where you are. No one will come. The environment hasn't changed, but your brain responds completely differently. Choice changes everything. Our ancestors probably experienced something similar. Hunters often traveled alone for short periods. Gatherers sometimes searched independently. Scouts explored unfamiliar territory. Being temporarily alone wasn't necessarily frightening, because they knew the tribe still existed. Someone was waiting. Someone would notice if they failed to return. The fear wasn't isolation itself. It was permanent separation. Perhaps that's the deepest lesson evolution left us. Humans weren't designed to face the world entirely alone. Not because we're weak, but because cooperation became our greatest strength. A single human can achieve remarkable things. Millions working together can reshape an entire planet. The instinct to seek one another, to comfort one another, to protect one another, helped transform a physically vulnerable primate into Earth's most successful species. So, why do humans fear being alone? Because for countless generations, being alone often meant danger. It meant fewer eyes watching for predators, fewer hands gathering food, less knowledge, less protection, fewer chances of surviving long enough to have children. Natural selection didn't remove that fear, it strengthened it, generation after generation, until it became part of who we are. Today, most of us no longer worry about lions outside our homes, or becoming separated from a hunting party. Yet the emotions remain. Quiet reminders from an ancient world. The next time loneliness appears, remember this. Your brain isn't broken. It isn't overreacting for no reason. It is responding with instincts that once protected your ancestors beneath African skies, around glowing campfires, across frozen landscapes, and through thousands of years of human history. Because deep inside every modern mind lives a prehistoric survivor, one who learned a simple lesson that echoed across countless generations. Together, we survived. And perhaps that is why being truly seen by another person still feels like coming home.